22 seconds remaining. And Bradshaw is back and looking again. Bradshaw running out of the pocket, looking for somebody to throw to, fires it downfield, and there's a collision. It's caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh. Franco Harris pulled in the football. I don't even know where it came from.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. I am Tim Hannon, and with me is
Steve Ward.
So probably the greatest, most famous moment in the history of Pittsburgh sports, the Immaculate Reception.
Bill Mazeroski might want to have a word with you about that.
Fair. Normally on the show, when we cover a Pittsburgh sports event or moment, we go back, we talk about the context behind it and what led up to it, and then we kind of deep dive into the event. Two reasons why we wanted to do something a little different here. One is, I think everybody knows the story, right? Everybody knows about the Immaculate Reception and the context around it and what happened. And then the second thing is, there are literally going to be dozens of retrospectives in both the local media and the national media. So, we wanted to do something, like I said, a little different. Steve and I aren't journalists. We do the show as fans, and we like to give the fan perspective. So we thought it would be fun to talk to a fan who was actually at the game between the Steelers and Raiders on December 23rd, 1972. So we're going to interview a fan that was there, a gentleman named George Hannon, who is also my dad. And my dad's been going to Steeler games for 52 seasons and counting. And he's been taking my brother and I for about 35 of those seasons. And growing up, it was always like really cool that I knew that my dad was there for the Immaculate Reception. I mean, it was like almost akin to like somebody's parents being there for the signing of the Declaration of Independence or something. And in the interview we're going to play, he gives a lot of great insight about what it was like being in the stands that day, and also just about what it was like going to Steeler games back then. He talks about, like, for example, this guy who was kind of like the mafia boss of their section at the River Stadium, Steve.
What's his name?
Specs.
Specs, yeah, that was it. Yeah. You don't want to mess with Specs. You didn't come dressed up like an idiot or jump up in the middle of a play if Specs was around. Or
even leave before the final whistle.
Yeah.
Apparently.
It didn't matter if that was 35-0, you were staying.
So yeah, he gives, like I said, a lot of really good insight. I found it really fascinating. I mean, I've talked to my dad about that play and that game before, but I even heard stuff that I'd never heard before. So we're going to play that just a little bit later. First, we wanted to talk about some possibly forgotten fun facts about the play. Again, everyone kind of knows the story, so we thought maybe it's something different. We throw out some things that maybe people aren't aware of. And the first fun fact I have, there are 3 pieces of footage that exist of this play. There's the NFL Films version. That's the one where Franco's kind of running towards the camera. Was shot by a guy named Ernie Ernst for NFL Films. And for years, that was the only footage of the play. And then NBC unearthed their version, their original game broadcast. So that's out there now as well. And then there's also a game film, which to me may be the most interesting version of the play because it shows a wide-angle view. So the game film is where the teams will film the game so that they can use it for, game planning and scouting the next week. And they usually film that from real high up in the stadium. Or, if you're in the New England Patriots, you do that like under like a coat or something so they can't see you.
Or in the team's press coaching box.
Right.
It's just more convenient for everyone that way.
Yes, much more convenient. But it's a cool angle because you can actually watch all the players on the field and all the routes that the receivers are running. It's a very wide angle. So we'll post all 3 of those on our website.
Now, was the guy running the the coach's film, was his name Abraham Zapruder or whatever. Back into the left, Tim. And then
it might have been like a 16-year-old Bill Belichick for all we know.
Yeah.
Another fun fact. So there's a lot of guys that were involved in this play that people don't really know their names. One of them is a guy named John McMakin, who was the Steelers tight end. And the reason that he kind of has a role in this play is because there was a controversy. So everybody knows the controversy about, who touched the ball, Fuqua or Tatum, and then did Franco actually catch it or did he trap it on the ground? There was a third, less kind of known controversy where the Raiders claimed that McMakin dove into the back of linebacker Philip Villapiano's legs, and that ref should have called a block in the back.
Villapiano still calls that the greatest clip of all time or something like that, because it's clipping. It was clipping back.
Right.
They called it.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at the replay, it's I don't think he hits him in the back. It's pretty much from the side. But, the Raiders are going to be Raiders. McMakin doesn't really do much in the NFL, but he later goes on to become an insurance salesman and really uses him being involved in that play to his advantage. He has these business cards that say, always be prepared for the unprepared, with a picture of him in the middle of the Immaculate Reception play. So good on him for being able to exploit that for his benefit. The name of the play, before it was called the Immaculate Reception, the name of the play as it's called in the huddle, 66 circle option. And the primary receiver on that play, Steve, any guesses who the primary receiver was?
Frenchie Fuqua.
It was not Frenchie Fuqua or Franco Harris.
I don't know. I don't know who else was left. I don't know any Steelers receivers in 1972 for 1,000, Alex. Not Lynn Swann or John Stallworth, because they were both in college. I don't know the other wide receiver for the Steelers back then. Me? No, I was 4 years not born.
It's Barry Pearson.
Well, yeah, he was pretty immortal. Yeah.
He was a rookie wide receiver from Northwestern, and also this is his first ever NFL game.
Oh, whoops! Wow, so he never even got a chance because Bradshaw was under all that pressure, running around for his life.
That's exactly right. So
Yeah.
So he's in the game because you mentioned 1972 receivers. Probably their best receiver that year was a guy named Frank Lewis. He had gotten hurt, and that's why they had to call up Pearson from the practice squad. And that play was a 4th and 10. And the play design of 66 circle option was for Barry Pearson to run basically like a 12-yard route to try to get a first down on 4th and 10. But as you said, Steve, Bradshaw gets flushed out of the pocket, and that whole play breaks down, and he just kind of fires it downfield. Barry Pearson does come back and start 10 games in 1973 and catches 3 touchdowns. So Barry Pearson does play after this and contributes at least somewhat, but he's the intended receiver on that play. Did you know that Joe Paterno had a pretty big influence on this play?
Oh, I know what story you're going to tell. Yes. He was in the showers helping out.
Oh boy.
No.
So Joe Paterno, when Franco, okay, so let me back up here.
I threw you off your game with that one.
You did. So Franco Harris on that play was in the block. He was not even really a receiver on that play. And after Bradshaw gets flushed out of the pocket, Franco's still kind of just out in the flat. And if you look at that wide angle footage, Franco's standing at the line of scrimmage when Bradshaw releases that pass. But he makes a beeline down the field, literally 20 yards. He runs 20 yards down the field towards the football, and that's how he ends up making that catch. And the reason he does that is because when he's at Penn State, Joe Paterno had drilled into his head, when the ball's in the air, just run towards the ball, right? No matter what you're doing, run towards the ball. And if you look at that wide angle film, a lot of the other Steelers receivers, they just kind of stop and stand there, the ones that aren't near the ball, which is understandable, which is probably what a lot of players would do, but Franco just darts towards it because Joe Pa had taught him to do that. And if he doesn't do that, he's still standing back at the line of scrimmage when the ball ricochets off of Jack Tatum.
Yeah, Joe Paterno worked out for everybody there. That was good advice. So, hey, never, normally on those Hail Mary type plays, it's always the guy, standing outside the pile that seems to catch it, never the guy that's actually in the mix.
There was a Carnegie Mellon professor named John Fetkovich who did a very detailed analysis of the play because, the controversy was always, did the ball hit Jack Tatum or Frenchie Fuqua? And the experiment he did, he was a physics professor, and the experiment he did was pretty simple. He threw a football as hard as he could against a brick wall, and it only bounced back a couple of feet. And so his theory that he was trying to prove was Frenchie Fuqua was coming parallel to the trajectory of the football, like that brick wall. And there's no way that the ball could have ricocheted back as far as it did if it hit Fuqua. But if it hit Jack Tatum, who was coming directly at the ball,
okay,
that's the only way the ball could go back that far.
Was that the second law of gravity or whatever? Second law of
thermodynamics?
No, it's not thermodynamics. It's
inertia. I don't know.
No, it's the opposite and equal reaction. It's
okay.
It's the law of energy or something. It's Newton. Yes.
Okay.
Only with a football, not an apple. Yes, an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes. Well, and that's what he was trying to prove.
Science we're looking at here. Yeah. Who knew we'd turn an episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy?
And NFL Films actually did a story about that, and they showed him doing this experiment where he was throwing the football against the wall, and so in his mind, he conclusively proved that there's no way that the ball could have hit Fuqua because of the way it bounced back.
But just to follow, that's Newton's third law of action and reaction for all you science nerds out there. So,
thank you, Steve.
Yes, for every action in nature, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if Jack Tatum hits you really hard, you probably won't remember it. So
thank you, Steve, for clearing that up. That definitely would have bugged me for 30 or 40 seconds. Yeah. So a lot of what ifs on that play. One of the what ifs I feel like never gets talked about is that Franco almost gets pushed out of bounds at the end of that play, right around the 6-yard line. I mean, he very nearly gets pushed out of bounds. And if he gets pushed out of bounds, there's still 5 seconds left. Roy Gerela was the AFC's Pro Bowl kicker that year for the Steelers.
He hits it. Come on, he hits it.
Well, I mean, it would have been. Remember, the field goal posts were still on the goal line. So it literally would have been a 6-yard field goal. I think he probably makes that, and the Steelers win 9-6. And if that happens, I just wonder, Steve, do you think the play is as famous as it is today?
That's a good question. Probably not. It's just like one of those, look at this quirky play that helped the Steelers win.
Right.
Or maybe everybody remembers the play and not the field goal, and the final score is 9-7,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. It would have been 9-7. Yeah, I don't know. I always wonder that because, I mean, if you look at the replay, I mean, he kind of tiptoes down the sidelines. And again, there still would have been plenty of time left to kick the game-winning field goal. But I just wonder if it would have been as well known had it not been a touchdown. But it was. So that's what we all remember. As we said, there were 5 seconds left when Franco scored that touchdown. The other thing people don't tend to remember, what happened after the touchdown? And everybody talks about the phone call up to the booth, and we get into that with my dad in the interview. But after they settled all that and called it a touchdown, 3 plays actually happen in this game after that. There's the extra point, which is kind of funny to watch if you watch the footage of that, because the Raiders at this point are really ticked off, and they're just kind of standing there. One of the Raiders players doesn't even have his helmet on for the extra point. So Gerela makes the extra point, and then he squib kicks the ensuing kickoff because he doesn't want to, they don't want them to get a return. That goes into the end zone for a touchback. And then Kenny Stabler fires up a Hail Mary. And since Kenny Stabler and like everyone else in the world can't throw a football 80 yards, that just kind of falls harmlessly to the ground. But there are 3 plays that happen after the Immaculate Reception. I think people tend to forget that too.
Yeah, good they didn't return it, huh? It could have been Buffalo, Kansas City all over again.
That could have been that could have been bad.
Yes.
Where is the ball? That's another fun fact. A fan named Jim Baker nabbed the ball and still has it to this day. He got it actually after the extra point. Back then they didn't replace, they really had like one game ball. They didn't have like the kicking ball and the regular ball and all that. So after the touchdown, the refs got the football and they put it on the little hash mark for the extra point as they were deciding whether or not it was going to be a touchdown. But then after the extra point was kicked, all those fans had stormed the field. And this guy, Jim Baker, he ends up getting that football and was actually offered a lot of money for it at one point, but he says he won't sell it because his son was born the same week as his play, and his son tragically passed away years later. So he kind of feels like it should stay in the family.
He keeps it in like some sort of weird vault somewhere. I saw that was on like an episode of Peyton's Places. He went and like saw the football, and you can, if you pay him $20, I think he'll let you look at it.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. I do remember he has it like in some kind of huge vault.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, maybe there'll be like an Ocean's 14 where they break in and steal the Immaculate Reception. George Clooney and Brad Pitt.
Nice. The play being called the Immaculate Reception, that name was given by a fan named Michael Ord. That evening after the Steelers win, he's drinking at a local bar, and he gets up on a table, he bangs a spoon on his glass, and he proclaims that, quote, "From this day forward, December 23rd will forever be known as the Feast of the Immaculate Reception," end quote. His girlfriend, who's there with him, says, "Man, that's a great idea. More people need to hear that." So she calls WTAE-TV and she says, "Can I please speak to Myron Cope?" And they put her right through to Myron Cope because, 1972. and she tells Myron Cope, this idea to call the play the Immaculate Reception. And Cope's actually hesitant at first because Pittsburgh has a very large Catholic population and it's kind of a sacrilegious name. But Cope does go on the 11 o'clock news and he says, "I just got off the phone with a good Christian woman and she had this idea to call the play the Immaculate Reception."
I'm disappointed that you didn't use your best Myron Cope impression there.
I would not be able to do that. But that's how that name is born. It actually takes a few years to catch on. NFL Films did a good job documenting how like none of the newspapers or even like the subsequent TV broadcasts, they like show footage from like games from 1973 where they're talking about, oh, that great play that Harris made last year. And no one's calling it the Immaculate Reception at that point. It's really not until 2 or 3 years later that people start calling it that. But of course, now that's how we all know it today. So yeah, drunk fan at a bar.
It's a good Christian woman, Tim.
Yeah.
Where else would she be on Sunday evening?
Yeah, right.
She had went to church.
She was at Mass. And
she was waiting for midnight Mass.
Right. Right, exactly. So yeah, just kind of funny how the play got its name. So those were just some fun facts. But now let me play the interview again. This is George Hammond, fan at the game, telling about what he remembers from that amazing day. Dad, thank you for joining us. One of the first things I wanted to ask you was you've had season tickets since 1971, which was obviously a year before this play. What can you go back and tell us? What convinced you to get season tickets to the Steelers at a time where they basically stunk?
Baseball was king back then. That was a tough ticket to get. I went to the first football game in Three Rivers Stadium, which was an exhibition game against the Giants. And that was Terry Bradshaw's first game. And he was like the future for the franchise because they already had Joe Green. But he stunk in that game. He got tackled in the end zone for safety, threw an interception out of the end zone. And that began his reputation as not being that good and stupid. So my friend Mike, his uncle, 70 was the first year in Three Rivers Stadium. His uncle in 71 offered us, we could buy the seats. We were on probation for 1971 because Specs controlled eight seats, and he wanted to see how we behaved ourselves at the game. So 71 was my probation year. 72, he transferred to one ticket to me. So that's how I got started. My friend Mike approached me because his uncle had eight tickets, and people that had gone to Pitt Stadium had enough with the Steelers and football.
So it was 1 year probation turned into 52 seasons of going to the Steelers games. That's wow, that's great.
Hey, a quick question. Is Specs the same guy they did the NFL films? Like, I've seen an NFL film special on a guy. Or was that a different guy? Like, where I remember they had like all kinds of food and like behind the seats in Three Rivers Stadium. Like, there was an NFL films thing. Is that the same guy?
I haven't seen that one. Specs ran a gas station on South Side at the end of Birmingham Bridge there on East Carson.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that definitely doesn't exist anymore. Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But he had a gang of guys that went to Pitt Stadium, and those were the diehard fans, sit on bench seats, totally open. So I guess they had enough from the 60s, and the ticket prices were a little higher at Three Rivers Stadium, of course. So they dropped that. So that's why we got started.
How much was the price of a ticket back then? I just for total.
Well, when I started, it was $7.15
a game.
Wow.
And $3 to park in the stadium lot.
So how many? No, they played 14 games. So 7 games plus what? 2 preseasons. So
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so 180 got you through. Well, I guess back in 1971, that probably was a fair chunk of change.
Yeah. And $3 for parking at the stadium.
Yeah.
A little different today.
So walk us through. So December 23rd, 1972 is the divisional playoff game against the Raiders.
Yeah.
Is there, what is it like that day? Is there like a bunch of energy going into that stadium knowing that it's a playoff game and the Steelers have never been in a playoff game before?
Yeah, there was that excitement. It's reminiscent of the Pirates playoff game. What is it, 10 years ago? Except the Pirates have been to the playoffs before. The Steelers never, in 40 years, never had a playoff game. There was excitement, but it wasn't, it was just happy to be there kind of thing, because the team was just beginning to develop. I think they won 11 games that year, mostly because of their defense. So there was excitement, but the game was not a sellout. There was only 50,000 people there, and it sat, 59, I think, for football. So it wasn't even a sellout, which is why it wasn't televised locally.
Okay.
Because it had to be a sellout back then, be televised. So nobody saw that play except 50,000 people at the stadium, or outside of Western Pennsylvania. I think you had to go to Erie to watch the game.
So you kind of alluded to the fact that it was, low scoring, wasn't much of a game. It was 6-0, and then the Raiders put Kenny Stabler in. He runs for this go-ahead touchdown. Steelers get the ball back, and I think they move the ball a little bit, but then it's like it's 4th down. Are you thinking at this point, like, what's the energy in the stadium? It's 4th and 10 before that play. Is there like a hope that they're probably going to convert this, or is it like you're picking up your coat ready to walk out?
Well, Specs wouldn't let anybody leave because you were staying to cheer the players because they had made the playoffs, so he wasn't letting anybody out of the row. So that there was no doubt about that. I think I told you I bought a ticket for my friend at work, and he was sitting in that little permanent pie section behind home plate at Three Rivers Stadium. So he would have had a perfect view of that play. So on Monday when I went to work, I asked him about it, and he said he didn't see the play because he was in the Liberty tunnels. He had left when Stabler scored. He left the game. So
it was obviously over, 7-6.
Yeah. So he didn't know what happened. He came out of the Liberty tunnels and they were going nuts, and he had no idea what happened.
Wow. So, I can't imagine telling that story for the rest of your life. I was at that game, but I missed it.
Yeah, where were you? I was somewhere in the Liberty tunnels.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so now it's 4th down. Can you sort of describe what you saw? I know this would have been on the other end of the field from your seats.
They were going towards home plate side of the stadium.
Right.
And I saw I think Bradshaw threw 4 passes, and this was the 4th down play. And I saw the ball bounce, and I thought, that's it, play's over. I didn't follow the flight of the ball. And then everybody started cheering, and I said, what happened? And they said, Franco got the ball, and, he's running for the end zone. And, he went in the end zone, and everybody's going crazy, jumping up and down, hugging each other. And, the official in the end zone signaled touchdown, but the rest of the officials got together and, what that means. And I think it was a good 15 minutes before they came out and actually signaled a touchdown. But, the officials never would have made it out of that stadium alive that day had they rolled anything else, because back in those days you could actually get out on the field, and there were like 10 people deep on each sideline, up and down the sideline. So I can't imagine being an official and saying it's not a touchdown because they couldn't have made it out of the stadium fast enough. So, but that was a wild scene. Franco ran into the end zone, and they had an army truck there because it was Franco's Italian army was his fan base, and they had an army truck there in the end zone he ran into. There was a group of his fans around that truck, and I mean, everybody was mobbing him, and it was just a wild scene.
I want to ask you about the refs huddling, because today, if that happened, people would celebrate, but we all know how football works today, where there's replay and there's 1,000, hours of the refs have to talk about it and phone in New York. But back then, that was not a thing. Like when a touchdown happened, it was a touchdown, and there was no huddling, there was no replay, there was no wait for the refs to announce it. So I imagine that must have been very foreign to people. And I just wonder, did people even realize, like you said, everybody went crazy, but then there's like this long delay between the touchdown and the extra point. Did sort of the reality start to set into the crowd, like, oh, they're like talking about this. I wonder if they're going to say it didn't happen.
It was just confusion. Why aren't they calling it a touchdown? They didn't put it up on the scoreboard. And some people had radios back then. So they were sort of relaying that, it was being discussed whether the ball hit Fuqua or hit Tatum, so we knew what the discussion was, but everybody was just impatient, waiting to get the game over with and celebrate. So.
And then did they come out, and I don't remember if they had microphones back then, but did they just come out and like signal touchdown and then everybody saw that?
Yeah, it's just like today where the referee comes out on the field and turns on his microphone, signals touchdown.
Oh, they did have microphones back then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And did the ball hit the ground? Well, I guess you didn't see it.
No.
You and Frenchie Fuqua are taking that to your graves.
Yeah. Poor Frenchie.
Was there any? I remember they had the big scoreboard, the center. I think it was center field scoreboard.
Left field.
Was there a replay? Did they have that back then?
No.
Okay, so nobody. So people are listening to the radio saying they're talking about whether it was illegal play or not, but there was no showing it on a scoreboard or a monitor somewhere. They didn't have that ability to do that yet.
Specs was a rules expert too. He knew what they were talking about.
Oh, okay, so he knew the rule was that at the time that the offensive player couldn't touch it.
Two offensive players couldn't touch it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that had to be nerve-wracking wading through that. I mean, it's nerve-wracking today. I mean, go back to like the Santonio Holmes catch, right?
Yeah.
In the Super Bowl, you had to wait for them to discuss it and look at 14 angles. But like today, you're kind of trained to know that that's what's going to happen anytime it's remotely close. But back then, again, you're used to when the play is over, the play is over. There's no discussion. So I imagine that just must have been weird.
Good, bad, or indifferent, they called it, and the coaches didn't have any challenge flags or anything. So
on Madden couldn't challenge the play.
No.
Yeah, it's funny. His contention for years was not. He never even contended like Fuqua touched the ball. His problem was, if you didn't think it was a touchdown when it happened, how did you know 15 minutes later? Right. And that wasn't a bad point because again, they weren't looking at a replay. There was no replay to look at.
I don't know. They're saying that there was a replay back then that the official could have looked at, or they could have looked at up in the booth. So
whoever they were talking to on the phone could have been watching a replay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another point of contention because I think they were in the Pirates dugout on the phone, and there's a lot of contention apparently about who they were talking to. So
because I think not Art Rooney, but Dan Rooney answered the phone.
Yeah, I think Dan was like, "Yep, it's a touchdown."
Yeah, put the points up. Somehow that phone connected to Dan Rooney at the time. So
nice.
That's convenient.
Yeah. Smart.
So the Steelers win. Do you remember leaving that game or even like that evening thinking like, man, they're going to talk about this for years? Or was it just, wow, that was a crazy play, we won?
Yeah, just that crazy play we won. I mean, that was the first playoff game in 40 years, and it was basically a tie game. We led 6-0 for almost 59 minutes, and then Stabler replaced Daryl LaMonica in the end of the third quarter. And, back then, a quarterback that ran was somewhat unique in that, he scored like on a 30-yard end around play where I think it was a design run. And that was deflating the lead for 59 minutes and then lose the game on a play like that. So
A lot of I guess the saying back then, SOS, same old Steelers.
I think people were just happy to be in a championship game for once in their life. I mean, Three Rivers Stadium was basically brand new. The team had a lot of future stars on it. I mean, you could see that things were heading in the right direction. So there was a lot of optimism. So it wasn't a crushing, it would have been a crushing loss, but people would have got over it. They knew they had a future, that Chuck Knoll and Dan Rooney were building a good championship team. So, after the Art Rooney years of changing coaches all the time and just being basically a joke for 40 years, you could feel things were starting to change. And football was just beginning to get popular in the late 60s, early 70s, because color TV started in the late 60s. You could actually see the game in color and not black and white. The games in the 60s were basically one camera along the sidelines. And you saw the game. It was crude, to say the least. So people were just starting to get interested in football, pro football.
Yeah, it's often people often attribute that as like the start of the Steeler dynasty, but then they lost the next week. So to your point, they probably still have a dynasty, even if that pass falls incomplete. But because it didn't, now there's just all this Pittsburgh lore and statues and 50th anniversary celebrations and everything else.
Yeah. Well, that was the first playoff game, first win, and it set the stage for the future. So, but it's also, there were only 50,000 people in a 59,000 seat stadium. So, the interest wasn't there, sadly. I think it was about 74 before they started selling out the games.
Yeah, that play didn't really necessarily turn everything around, but it was kind of it's always associated as that. Like the Steelers stunk, the Immaculate Reception happened, and then they were great, and it was a little more complicated than that, I guess.
Yeah, but it took some time after that.
That was 72. They won. When they win, 74? 75? Yeah, 74. Yeah.
In 75.
Yeah. What about that fake punt by the Dolphins? Were you mad when that happened? I know Joe Green like says it like some of the defensive players. Like, oh, that was a cheap way to win.
Yeah. It's just angry being outsmarted by Don Shula, because Chuck Noll used to be an assistant coach for Don Shula, and you think he would have known better than that. But it was funny because the week after the Immaculate Reception, that was that game, and it was like in the mid-60s in January. And everybody was talking about how Miami would have to come up into the cold weather and play, and that never happened.
Dad, any other thoughts for us before we let you go?
No, it's just there's a lot of fun being there, and it's like a transition from being a perennial loser and laughing stock to a team that had a future, which is why I became a season ticket holder for all these years. We've seen a lot of good football games and had a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. So,
for sure. Although probably nothing could ever really top that in your second season of going. So.
Oh yeah, that was definite. That's something you'll always remember being there for. Not too many games that come down to that kind of ending. Although you guys were at the New England game that you thought we won, and we didn't at the end.
Yeah, I hope in 50 years nobody's interviewing me about the Jesse James and not catching the ball. Yeah, I really hope that's not the case.
But I mean, imagine had the officials done that in '72.
Oh yeah.
It could have happened.
Fred Swearinger would not be probably in good health right now. Well, I'm sure he isn't anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, thank God he was the referee that day.
Yep.
Hey, Dan Rooney must have done something. Art and Dan Rooney did something right. They covered their bets.
Yeah, I mean, if that game's in Oakland, you do wonder if, and the exact same thing happens, you do wonder if they roll differently. I don't think that they knew. I think even if you had replay, I don't think that they would have been able to determine it, especially with the quality of the television then. But you do wonder if it's in Oakland, if it turns out different. But it wasn't. So, and now here we are 50 years later celebrating it. All right. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you taking the time. And
thanks, Mr. Hannon.
Okay, Steve. Good talking to you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
See ya.
All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Again, a lot of great insight there. And Steve, any last thoughts here on this celebration of this great moment in Pittsburgh sports history and its 50th anniversary?
Just a fun time to remember. And boy, it's great we got that on tape because, kind of preserve that for posterity's sake. So it's good to hear a firsthand. That's, when historians look, not that, historians will be looking at our podcast, but that's actually real life history. A firsthand account of something happened is considered, very historical fact. So look at us. We're doing something, right?
We are contributing to the annals of Pittsburgh's rich history.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please check us out on social media on Twitter or Facebook, our website. Please subscribe. And most importantly, please get the word out about our little podcast here. That's probably our best way of getting new listeners. Thank you, and we will see you next time.